Jesus Christ, you people suck. Wow. Wolverine on it.
Back in the days when we played video games, it was hardcore for the nerdy and lazy. Now things have changed and all our video games are also for the casual and lady.
But that's okay, you know the score. We told you a million times before. Playing consoles, not just games, is in the past. And every week you listen to the best damn internet radio crew. It's the N4G podcast. It's the N4G podcast.
Alright, it's time for the newest episode of N4G Radio, and this is the Game of the Year 2020. On the show this week we have Anthony,
Hello.
we have Drew,
Yep.
we have Jay,
안녕하세요.
and we got the Wombat too.
Yes, sir.
And everybody brought their Google Doc of video games that they enjoyed, were disappointed by, or just flat out hated.
Yeah.
2020.
Oh, I actually wrote mine down on paper.
What?
Yep.
You
I
fuck-
just have to add, by the way, that I went back out of morbid curiosity and listened to the very first episode of this show.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
Yeah.
And in addition to the fact that it was horrible, both in content and in production, and the fact that we were still like trying to be edgy and thought that was funny and cool. The only part of it that was even somewhat professional was the introduction to the show, where instead of going, "All right, it's time for another week," Ken's just like, "All right, this is N4G Radio for the week of 8/20/2006. Let's do some introductions for people who don't know who we are."
First game ever talked on N4G Radio was Dead Rising, right?
Yeah.
It was, yeah.
Well,
By you, no less, right?
No, not by me.
Who was it?
Oh,
me
no,
and
'cause
Justin.
there was Justin went first,
Yeah.
and Justin talked about Dead Rising because Ken faked me out by introducing us clockwise and then asking us to share our games counterclockwise.
I had to throw that loop in. I mean, I started off in disarray.
That's right. But that first show is awful.
It
It's just
is.
awful.
Well, I'm going to be honest with
Embarrassing.
you. This is much better.
I'll
Well-
tell you, game of the year 2007 is still
Oh,
one of
God.
the best episodes we've ever done.
Drew memorized it.
Gambus Khan has the best line out of anybody.
It's the Bioshock conversation
The
again.
Bioshock conversation, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that first episode, we were still we still thought we could be like South Park or something. It was
I mean, it was a long, time
Does
ago.
anybody still have the show before this?
No.
No,
That was on.
it's
It was on like internet radio, and I don't have any archives of that thing.
Could the Wayback Machine go back and find that?
Not the
'cause
file.
you realize that this show existed before the iPhone. I think about that every now and then, and it just
Oh
Yes.
my god!
makes me laugh.
Yes, this was before what a podcast was a podcast.
Well, no.
No,
not
it was a podcast. We referred to ourselves as a podcast at least once in the first show because the iPod was out.
Gotcha.
But I mean, it was before like there was an iPhone, like before everybody had something in their pocket that could listen to a podcast. So mostly we were internet radio.
Holy cow! Yeah, I still like the first episode of that stupid radio show was just me and Jason, and we were talking about Marvel vs. Capcom 2.
See, I think we lost gold. I just know that the Wayback Machine doesn't save content like that.
Yeah.
It only saves like the surface level stuff.
Like
Yeah.
pictures and shit.
Yeah, if it can, yeah.
It doesn't even save every picture. And funny, like, I know I've told this before, but you know that first show was not us having conversation. Like,
The first you and Jason show?
yeah, it was one of us recorded, and then the other one of us recorded over that.
Oh, wow.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, we did not lose anything then.
No, it was bad.
Funny enough, that's actually how this show's done. We
Yeah.
do it throughout the week.
Yeah, each one of us sit here for 2 hours and listen to the rest of us talk and then talk over it, so.
Yeah, I'm not actually here right now.
No.
When I cut off Ryan, it's a clever ruse, everybody.
Yeah. No one's actually getting cut off.
Nah. All right, let's do some lists. I'll start with you, Anthony. How is that? Does that make you feel good?
Well, John's not here, so it's not the same. Sure, yeah. I'll start with my favorite old game that I played this year.
Overwatch.
Is that
It's always mine.
I know, and it's always Ken's.
And
You guys basically don't get to say yours because we all fucking know.
I'm still going to
Right?
say it.
Hotel Dusk, Room 215. I had not played that for up until this year for some reason, or last year for some reason. I finally did, and it's one of my favorite graphic adventure point and click, whatever games. Just a well-crafted narrative from top to bottom. My worst games. At number 3, Space Channel 5 The Funky News Flash. What a disappointment. They wanted $40 or $30, I can't remember, whatever the American price was, for like 30 minutes of content. It was just... all they had to do was even include the originals as much as they could without mentioning Michael Jackson, and it would have been a good deal, but it's literally just a nothing experience that's over before it begins, really. Speed 3 Grand Prix, boy, that was a piece of shit. And number 1 was Disaster Report 4 Summer Memories. That is one of the worst games I've ever played. And at one point in time, someone, Wario64 posted a link saying it was on sale. Somebody asked, "Is this a good game?" I said no. Somebody responded to me, said, "Yes, it is." I asked them why, and they told me to fuck off. They couldn't. I asked them what they liked.
That's
about
why it's
it,
a good
and they were
game.
like,
Because fuck off.
I don't have to explain myself. And I'm like, you would figure someone would want to sell the product if they're saying it's good, but he couldn't come up with anything. He was just insulting. Like this game. This whole game is just insulting. It's not well written. It's not well paced. It's not fun to play. And half of the mechanics don't work. It's a piece of shit, and it should have never been released. Special mentions. Ghost of Tsushima. I didn't play enough of it. Otherwise, it would be on the list. I liked what I played very much, but I never got out of that first area. And I know that game becomes so much more. So, that's why that's not on my list. The other is Maneater, a game I completed from top to bottom and got all the achievements in. I really like that game. It was going to be my number 10, but got bumped off. It's a very good game. It's by no means the best game, but it's a lot of fun. So, at number 10, a remaster, SpongeBob SquarePants Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated. I like 3D platformers. This is a very good 3D platformer. It's very pretty now, and I just had fun. But I also liked SpongeBob growing up, so maybe there's a lot of nostalgia to it. But I think that's a great game. 9, Pumpkin Jack, a game that a lot of people I don't think know about. It's a great 3D platformer that isn't just a collectathon. It is a linear platformer. It has a good sense of humor. It sort of has that rare sensibility to it, but also a mix of Crash Bandicoot and stuff. Like, very unique game made by one guy, which is still mind-blowing. Number 8, this is a remake, Mafia Definitive Edition. I will not tell you that is a good open world game. It is not. If you go into the open world mode, it is very boring. what that game is a very good mafia story, and I'm glad they went back and remade it because I would never play the original. It's rough, it's ugly. I know this loses some of the appeal of the original game, but I loved the story in this game. I think the performances were fantastic, and the twist towards the end was perfect timing. Great.
Did you play Mafia 2, Anthony?
Mafia 2 I have not played. I have played Mafia
Okay.
3. I know that
I was
Mafia
gonna
2
ask.
is... Sorry?
I was gonna ask because I only played Mafia 2, only a little bit of Mafia 3, but I really like Mafia 2, so I was wondering if the story was better in Mafia 1
The
compared
story is better in Mafia. I've played
Yeah?
all three of them.
Uh-huh.
I think Mafia 2 is the weakest one.
to. Really? Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I really like 3, but the problem with 3 is there's just too much of it.
Yeah, Mafia 3 ends up being an open world game. Mafia is not,
Yeah,
even though there's an open world, but it is clearly level based. In the fact that you don't even really get to explore the city all that much in the main game. Like, you can drive different paths, but that's not the main focus. But Mafia 1, there's a link to Mafia 1 and Mafia 2, and then Mafia 2 leads into Mafia 3. They are all linked, but they're not a direct story continuation. In fact, the fact that you have played Mafia 2 first, I think Mafia 1 will hit a bit different, because there's certain things that happen in Mafia 2 that reference Mafia 1. But honestly, it's a really good story. I think it's probably my favorite Mafia game story in all video
Nice.
games.
On my list. Nice.
Number 7, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2. I don't really have anything else to say. It's Tony Hawk Pro Skater. It's very pretty. It's from the ground up. It's one of the best remakes ever because it captures everything that the originals did, which I thought was not going to be possible because when they did the HD remasters on the 360, they were fucking terrible. 6, Hades. I thought this would actually be higher on my list, and then the games above it just kind of bumped it out. A very good roguelike that is oddly focused on a story that continues, and actually the rogue elements fit into that. I really like the world of Hades. I really like the gameplay of Hades. It's probably the best roguelike I've played ever, I'd say. Number 5, another Greek mythology game, Mortals Phoenix Rising. I love that game. I've spoken enough about it in the last couple of weeks. 4 is the newest addition in the last game I've played in the thing, Animal Crossing New Horizons. God damn it, I've played that game every single day since I've gotten it. There's always something to do. It's the best Animal Crossing game so far, and I'm addicted to it. It's what I do, even if it's just, digging up the fossils for the day. But if there's something going on, I'll spend more time. Number 3 is Murder by Numbers, a Picross title that is technically not Picross because that's the Nintendo brand. I just liked that it's this 90s aesthetic Picross game. The puzzles got very difficult, and I loved it. But there's a story that they do throughout the game, and it clearly has taken a lot of inspiration from Ace Attorney, to the point where they got the composer to do the music for the game, and I loved it. I spent so much time just sitting there, especially when I had vertigo. It's kind of the only thing I could do because it doesn't involve looking at a lot of things. I could just kind of sit there, have my neck straight. The room wasn't spinning because I wasn't moving around, and I was just doing those puzzles.
So for that game, right? How close did they follow the movie? Did they get Sandra Bullock and Ryan Gosling to replace their roles, or no?
No.
Oh, that's such a shame. These movie titles.
Was Ryan Gosling playing the floating robot?
Possibly, I haven't seen that movie.
And then
Hey,
I told
real quick, let me just add, Anthony,
Uh-huh.
if you like Picross games, the Konami Pixel Puzzle game on iOS is tremendous. It's 500 puzzles that all have to do with older Konami franchises, and it's completely free, and is a really, really good Picross nonogram style game.
it's a embarrassment of riches in the Picross world, I think.
Yeah, those are
I,
my favorite types of puzzle games. So I play just about every one of them that I can find. The Konami one is the best, at least free Picross game that I've found.
I played a bit of that one on my old phone. I have to get it on my new one, I think. I didn't play a lot of it, but it's just because I'm kind of used to not playing with touch controls
Oh yeah,
like that. So it was getting used to that, and then I switched phones. But yeah, I love Picross. That's what I play on my 3DS for the most part too. So, and then I kind of cheated. I have two number ones, and it's because I couldn't choose between the two, and it's not because they're both, they're both the perfect sort of game. It's because they both focused on a different part of me I or a different part of what I enjoy in video games. So, Streets of Rage 4 and Carto are the choices I have for number one. Streets of Rage 4, it's this nostalgic beat 'em up that has great visuals and amazing music, and it felt so fun to play. It just I can't think of a game because I played not last year, the year before, River City Girls, and it was a good game, but it wasn't great. And here's this beat 'em up that's near perfect, and I loved it. I have to mention one specific scene because it's something that my mind goes to a lot, and it's the elevator ride. It's in almost every beat 'em up. You have that inevitable elevator ride where enemies just keep jumping in and you fight your way out. And in that game, in Streets of Rage 4, you go through a level and there's this sort of dubstep music playing, and it's kind of repetitive. And then you get into the elevator and the music changes and you're rising up, which is actually the song title. I didn't mean that, but say that, but like that's the song title. And it's this glass elevator. So you're seeing the city, and the music in that moment, I was like, this is a very different game, but clearly made by someone who understands it, or a different moment for this type of game. Because you're throwing enemies outside of the elevator, like you're breaking the window, and then you're throwing enemies out. And then you get to the top, and there's a boss fight with a character from the series, and that game came out very early last year, and throughout the year my mind just kept going back to it, and a lot of that has to do with the music. And on Cardo's side of things, it was a lot of the music, it's puzzle solving, and there was just this kindness in the game that, how do you review a game? And luckily I didn't have to, and it's on Game Pass. I think both of them still are, so play them. They're free if you have Game Pass. It's this puzzle game that's just this very kind game, which is not something I can say about a lot of games, but there's this honesty to it that you're just discovering this world, and it's very childlike, but there's all this lore in it that clearly a lot of love and care has been put into. It reminds me of something Nintendo would do, and all I wanted to do was spend more time in Carto. And when it ended, I was happy, and I was like, I really hope I see more of this, but I'm okay if I don't. And to me, that's where you should feel at the end of most games, not necessarily demanding more, because that to me says the story wasn't completed. And if it's, I'd never want to see more of this, that's not good either. It should be, this is an ending, but when there's more, I'll be ready for it. And something in Cardo, I couldn't say this game wasn't my favorite of the year either. So those are very odd games to have like going up against each other. One's this action-packed beat 'em up, and the other one's this slow-paced puzzle game that's very sweet and all the characters are loving, where there's no real conflict. But those are my favorite games of the year: Cardo and Streets of Rage 4. Again, I don't know why those two stood out to me the way they did, but I know that the music did part of it. And I hope that people, even if you don't play the games, go and listen to the soundtrack, and maybe that'll make you want to play it, because there's something to those songs that are just infectious. That's it. That's my number one. Unless you want me to talk about just 4 some more.
No, I'm good.
Yeah, nobody wants to.
All right. I'll go over to Jay then.
All right. So more or less picking up from where Anthony left off, this year has shocking amount of remakes, and not just like any remakes. They're actually competent. They're great in a lot of ways, but at the same time, they're still remakes for all intents and purposes. They play and have the same exact storyline as the original, and they are built specifically for that. Kind of to give the same old experience, but in a new, polished, modernized package. And they did a great job. Games like Xenoblade Definitive Edition, Demon's Souls, even Resident Evil 3, I think, is a bit divisive, but I think that game also did a good job of kind of showcasing what was great about Resident Evil 3 in a lot of ways. But I'm not going to enter any of those games into my top 10, because I think most of those games give you the same kind of experiences, except for, I guess, like Resident Evil 3. But as far as honorable mentionables, so Astrobot, I think, is like the perfect tie-in game to come with a package of a console, to give you the feeling, the idea of what you can do with the DualSense. It basically laid down the foundation for all the things that are possible. And at this point, it's basically in the developers' hands whether or not they can take advantage of it. And I think that's pretty awesome. I think games like Wii Sports and Astrobots are the kind of games that really needs to be bundled in with hardware that has new features and functionalities. And that was exactly the right game for that moment. I also really enjoyed Miles Morales. The shorter length actually helps the game in a lot of ways, because you're not spending as much time just kind of doing the everyday open world game stuff, crossing off a checklist of things that you got to do and everything. So that actually ended up helping it quite a bit. Enjoy the combat. I think Miles controls and has more things to do than Peter in a lot of ways, which I thought was very cool. I enjoyed the story. It wasn't anything that blew my mind or anything, but I'll say it had a lot of heart. And I like the way it ended. And I'm excited to see more of Miles Morales in general when the next Spider-Man game comes out. So getting straight into the list, number 10, Doom Eternal. I think a lot of people found Doom Eternal a little disappointing after coming off the strong Doom 2016, I think it was. And I kind of get that. I think there are some aspects of Doom Eternal that are more bloated than it needs to be. I think they go more into exposition than Doom really needs, to be frank, because, let the other FPS deal with that nonsense. Let Doom just be about the combat and the gameplay. But what is there as far as the gameplay improvements and the additions that they made, I can only describe it as like a ballet of violence. It's a beautiful thing. Yeah. When it's actually rolling and you're maintaining all of your resources, using the flamethrower at the right times to get the armor, doing glory kills to get the health from enemies, taking specific weapons that are more effective against certain other types, trying to bring them all together while you have this freedom of movement with the double dashes and just double jumping everywhere. It's awesome. It's one of those games where you just play, you just kind of get lost in it, and at the end of a very difficult encounter, you can actually still feel your heart beating because it was that exhilarating. And that is something that doesn't that not a lot of FPS games give you. I think Doom Eternal does that very well. And number 9, this is a game that I think kind of got the short end of the stick a lot of the time, but that's Neo 2. I think Neo 2 basically improves on almost every aspect of Neo, as far as like the loot, the builds, a lot of the boss fights and everything being improved. But at the same time, it's still more of the same. It's just done better. And in all honesty, what more do you want from a sequel in that way?
My
So
father wanted nothing more. It's his favorite game this year. He has played it since
Oh, yeah?
March, and he has over, God, 3,000 hours. Something
I
like
can
that.
believe it. There's so much content in that game, and the DLC that came after the fact added a lot of really cool new elements too, which I
You
thought
have
was
to
very
understand, though, this is also a guy who did every single floor of that crazy dungeon in the first game.
good. Yeah,
So-
even I didn't go that far, so that's
yeah,
pretty crazy.
so he scrapes the bottom of the games before he's done with them. But yeah, Neo 2 is definitely beloved by the people that are really into Neo.
Yeah, because Neo is like a combination of a lot of different gameplay elements that that I enjoy. It's got the Diablo loot. It's got like this third person samurai action aspect of it with varying stances, different weapons, different builds that you can make for your characters. It has that really challenging but fair difficulty that really pushes you to try to approach situations in different ways and things like that. So definitely, I'm looking forward to seeing what they're going to do next with the Neo series in general. With the way the story ended with the final DLC. So looking forward to that. Number 8, Last of Us Part 2. This is probably, it goes without saying this is the most divisive game of the year. Was one of the most anticipated. And I understand the points that are brought up from both sides. The one side that thinks it's a masterpiece, I can see it because the level of performance, the visual fidelity, and the sheer ambition in the storytelling makes it very unique in a lot of ways. I don't think there is anyone that can make the argument that the presentation and the performance in this game is second to none. And because of that, it really allowed the characters to flourish. And whether you like the characters and the story and how things ended up, you have to still stand in awe of what they were able to accomplish. And I felt the same way. And as the credits rolled, I felt mixed emotions, not because I wasn't sure if I had enjoyed the game that I had played. I did. But more so that how I was able to digest and interpret the story going forward. And I think about that story sometimes and the elements that it holds as not just as a video game, but as like a narrative device. So it has made a lasting impression, and in that way, it was still a very important game of 2020. Number 7 is Streets of Rage 4. I think Anthony put it pretty well. It's a refinement of a formula that I didn't think they would be able to do so well, having picked up the pieces after how many years, ago was Streets of Rage 3? Was it like 20 years ago or something like that? And the
Yeah,
fact that
something.
they were able to just pick it up, like they never left the series. That Streets of Rage has been going on all these years, consistently building on the success and the foundation of the originals and what made them so fun in the first place. And beating that game in normal base is basically like a training mode to prepare you for the more difficult modes that really test your skills and knowledge about the gameplay elements, about your characters. And they have literal combo videos for Streets of Rage 4 where they juggle enemies to death off walls, do the craziest, like frame perfect juggles and all this nonsense. And it goes to show how deep the game is despite it being a side-scrolling brawler. And yep, it's just simply fantastic. Definitely my favorite co-op game of the year. Not even close to anything else. It just get another controller with a friend, play online, play offline, whichever. Just have a grand old time. Doesn't matter how good they are, how bad they are at video games. They're gonna have a good time. And number 6 is Yakuza Like a Dragon.
Yeah.
Yeah, baby. Yeah. It's I'm sure this game will find its way into Ken's list as well. But as far as why I like this game so much is it manages to bring a new cast of characters into the world of Yakuza, and I was very, very scared. As someone that has played literally every single Yakuza game that has ever come out in the West, and adores the characters like Kiryu, Majima, and all these other guys. When they were going to introduce a brand new lead, I was wondering how can he possibly, take up the mantle from legendary characters, and they did it. They did it. Ichiban, Sasuke Ichiban is a fantastic character, endearing, charming, goofy, just exactly the type of protagonist that Yakuza series can get behind and kind of get carried along. And he's great. All of his other side characters and his party members are also great as well. And the fact that they turned this like 3D beat 'em up into this more traditional style RPG element, and they still did it very well. And it still feels very much like a Yakuza game, despite that fact, is amazing to me. That it doesn't feel like a spin-off; it feels like a mainline entry to the series, despite the fact that it's playing completely different from the other games. And it's also becomes an excellent point of if you don't like the 3D aspect, like 3D brawler aspect of the other Yakuza games, but if you're like an RPG fan, I could see some people getting into this game specifically because of that element. So definitely try that out. Number 5 is a game that I think most people thought it might be higher on my list, but it just kind of ended up here after I did a lot of thinking and ruminating upon like the elements surrounding it. Is The Legend of Heroes: Trails of Cold Steel 4. So people that know me know how much I love the Legend of Heroes series. It is currently my favorite RPG game series. It may even actually be my favorite series right now that is currently running. It has overtaken things like Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy. It's not even close anymore as how much I adore the characters, the world building, and everything around it. But even though this game is very important to the overarching storyline, it's literally it's like a decade worth of storytelling and characters coming together, culminating into this one giant finale. It's like an Avengers Endgame finale for this series, and it is fantastic. It ends in the most beautiful, satisfying way. And when I put the controller down after finishing the game, I felt content. And you don't really feel that with a lot of video games. However, it's also mired by the fact that the localization for this game was substandard. It's not even just the usual spelling mistakes. They have literal voice acting lines coming from wrong characters' mouths. They don't even translate certain things. The combat like status reports and things like that are all wrong for so many different skills. It feels like a very rushed job. And I get it, 2020 pandemic, it's rough. And these Legend of Hero games have incredibly bloated scripts that needs to be translated. It's a daunting task, but if you take up the task, you got to be able to do it right. This is a game that was highly anticipated, but not just by me, but a lot of people that have been following the series for so long, and to see it, treated this way really, really hurt me deeply. I felt like Nisa could handle it after they did a really solid job with Cold Steel 3, but they dropped the ball with 4. I hope they'll be able to redeem themselves with East 9 and Hajimare whenever that gets announced.
And this is Cold Steel is Falcom as well, right?
Yeah, so it's Falcom developed, and the Nisa localized.
Nisa's now dropped the ball twice with Falcom property because East Sorry, I'm
Issei,
looking at my-
yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
had that rough translation. And you played this one in Korean, didn't you?
Yeah, I initially played it in Korean. They do a really good job. The Asian translators for Korean, like I see no mistakes. Obviously, my Korean is not as strong as my English at this point, but I was still able to understand and enjoy the game. But yeah, it just bums me out, dude. Like I want to give Nisa the benefit of the doubt. They publish and develop some of my favorite games. Like this guy is one of my favorite series ever, and to see them time and time again trip over themselves, like putting their reputation through the mud over and over again, and then redeeming themselves and then tripping over themselves. It's like a pattern, and it just disappoints me. But we'll see. We'll see. I mean, they got East 9 coming out in Hajimara, so.
I just wanted to bring up the fact that you played this in Korean just to cement how big of a fan you are.
Oh, yeah, I paid like $120 to import this game in Korean with like 3-day shipping or something like that. So yeah, I'm a big fan. I'll play the games again when it comes out in English and all this other stuff. But you know, it is what it is. We'll see what lies in the future for Nisa. And number 4, I think this game is going to find its way to a lot of people's list is Ghost of Tsushima. There isn't much to say about Ghost of Tsushima except for everything that it does exactly as well as it needs to do or better. All the games that I played in the past have claimed to be cinematic, have claimed to tell stories that are worth sitting through despite its 20, 30-hour length point. But I have never really felt a game truly being cinematic until I played Ghost of Tsushima. The cinematography in the cutscenes of these games, and I will never forget the opening moment of Ghost of Tsushima. And I know Ryan probably definitely remembers this too. The swell when he finally gets onto the horse, the music starts to swell up, and you take control, and then you're just riding through that open field, and then the title card drops, and then the music is blaring in the background, and it's just literal goosebumps in the back of my neck. So I was like, wow. Not only does this game look fantastic, but I just feel pumped to be in this world, to see what unfolds. And not only does this game begin beautifully, it also ends beautifully too. The solemn moments of writing that haiku in that final bout just, like I have no qualms admitting that I shed tears during the middle of a fight. Not because it was difficult, but because of the emotional connotations behind the Clash of Blades in that moment. And I was like, this is peak cinematography and peak storytelling. And I love that moment so much. And I'm never going to forget that moment. And the reason why it's number 4 and it's not number 1 is because at the end of the day, it is still follows the cookie cutter formula of the open world. It has a lot of checklists, sort of meaningless things for you to do. I feel like if they somehow transcended that formula, and if they did something a little different that was a little bit more involved, I think this could have been my number 1. But the story, the visuals, the technical wizardry of just keeping that solid lock 30 frames per second, the fast load times, I respect all of that. And the fact that it's a brand new IP, it's a lot of risk involved in that too. So
That
definitely,
was the best. That was the best game Sony put out this year. I'm not even going to take any arguments on that one. That game is so good.
yeah, I would not argue with you in the slightest. Oh man, it's just I can't wait. Like I'm not sure if they'll ever make a sequel to this game. I don't think it needs one, to be frank. But whether or not it does or does not, I'm on board.
Yeah,
I'm
Sucker
on board to
Punch.
see what they're doing.
I'm always there when Sucker Punch makes a game, and this just cements that they just get better with time.
Absolutely, just tremendous. And if you have not played it, and by the way, Ghost of Tsushima goes to another level playing on the PS5 locked at 60 frames per second. It already played pretty well. It already looked great. But the fidelity gained by just having, that literally double the frame rates at all times is awesome. So definitely, if you have a PS5, if you haven't played Ghost of Tsushima for whatever reason, you have literally no excuse. Just go buy it, play it. You're going to love it. And number 3 is Hades. I think Hades is one of those games I heard a lot about before I even played it. It's one of those games where there was a lot of buzz, word of mouth about how good it is while it was in early access. And I was like, okay, it's great. Let it cook, let it finish, and when it's out of early access, I'll play it. And I'm very glad that I did, because not only is it like not only is it Supergiant's best game in my book in terms of quality of the combat, the visuals, and the storytelling, it's, I think, possibly my favorite roguelike of all time. And at this point, I've played a lot. I think my favorite roguelike before Hades was probably Rogue Legacy. Was probably my favorite, just because it's just pure gameplay, pure fun, and then there's just such a great balance between your consistent upgrades and the exploration aspect of it. But Hades just takes everything to another level. I think it's going to be a pillar of the genre going forward. Every other roguelike to come is going to be compared to Hades. That's how good that game is. It raised the bar. So if you're kind of on the fence about it, saying like, oh, I don't like roguelikes, this is one of those games where even if you don't like it, because of how you get invested into the story of how it unfolds over time, you might find yourself thinking like, yeah, this genre is not something that was for me, but you can make an exception for very exceptional games from that genre, and Hades is probably going to be one of those. And number 2 is Final Fantasy VII Remake. I think this game gets a lot of flack for not for being what it is, but for what it's not. And I would be on the same board had I not already realized what it was going in. I knew that the game was only going to take place until they leave Midgar, and I knew that. So when it actually happened, I wasn't really disappointed. But what I did really enjoy about this game is that if you go back and play Final Fantasy VII now, and it's not something that I did, I didn't finish it, but I played like a decent chunk of the game to prepare for Final Fantasy VII Remake. Those characters, the script, the translation, the visuals and everything, they really don't hold up. I hate to say it for one of my favorite Final Fantasy games, but they really do not hold up. And a lot of your love for that game kind of goes down to the imagination that you had at the time, as well as its nostalgia factor. So if I think about Final Fantasy Remake, what it does is basically it gives the imagination of how things were, and it gives them life on the screen right in front of me. And not only that, it adds to that element of what I thought I enjoyed about these characters, and it does so much more. Like, I never really cared that much about like Barrett as a character. I never really cared that much about like Aerith as a character. But this game made me fall in love with those guys. And I think that speaks really well to the characterization and the stellar visuals and what they did with the combat, making it more action focused. I was a little worried at first, and I still think there are some improvements to be made with certain attacks not really being blockable, and you don't really, know whether or not they are. But in all honesty, they still did a really good job. The idea that they can take something as simple as a boss fight that lasted maybe like a minute or two on the original game and turn it into like a spectacle. And they do it basically for every single boss fight in that entire game. It feels like they really do love the game and they want to show it in its best possible form. And I understand that people are frustrated that there isn't more, and the fact that we might have to wait maybe a decade or more to get the whole entire Final Fantasy VII Remake package. But I think the wait will be worth it. That's how I feel. It's one of those games where, yeah, it's gonna take forever to finish in the long run, but when you enjoy something so much, you can be a little patient. And my number 1 of this year is probably a game that I'm gonna keep talking about for a long time to come because of how great it is 13 Sentinel, Aegis Realm. And I don't think, did anyone here play this game at all, or even like anyone own it?
Nope.
No, it's one of those.
No.
I've looked at it, Jay, and I know you love it, and I go, oh yeah, I mean, I like Vanillaware, and then I look at the gameplay and go, yeah.
Yeah. And funny enough, like I had the same, or I had a similar response to the game initially because Vanillaware is second to none when it comes to 2D sprites, and they knock it out of the park once more here. But what actually kind of worried me was that combat where you're on that like grid base field, and then it looks very retro style. And they didn't really show much of that gameplay because it doesn't really show very well. But it turns out that element of the game is also still pretty good, despite it still being the weakest element of the game. But what makes the game really stand out is the story. Not just in how mind-bendingly fucking batshit crazy the story it is, but how it is actually, how it is given to the player over time. So basically the way the story works is that you have these characters, and there's a lot of them. There's and you play through a certain part of their story, and that storyline gets locked at a certain point, and then you can go to another character story, and then kind of go over and over and over again. So think of it as a giant jigsaw puzzle that you're trying to solve, and you figured a story given to you piecemeal in a jigsaw format would be very difficult to digest and figure out. But they did it in such a way that it's not. Like, if you think about it, if you try to remember the things that you've seen, you start to make connections left and right. It's one of those games where revelations are constant. Those twists are constant, and it never gets old. I don't know how they did it. If I had 100 years to write a story like this and try to give it to, kind of try to narrate it in this type of format, I don't think I would be able to do it. It's simply brilliant. And the way the game ends, the overarching storyline of the things that you kind of find out over time. I'm not going to spoil anything, of course, because that's the main selling point. Is definitely one of my favorite stories in gaming now. So let that be, and I'm the guy that basically plays any big RPG games and, more obscure RPG games too. So I know stories in video games, and this is one of the best. And the combat, initially I thought it was too easy and too routine, but once I bumped up the difficulty and I got to the later stages, it started getting really challenging and fun. It's like this strategy, like 3D grid-based thing where you take turns and you try to protect something from being destroyed while these like scourge of enemies of different types come at you and you try to stop them from getting in. So almost like a mobile tower defense, but it gets a lot more intricate because you have leveling up elements, you have special attacks, you can move your characters around to different places. And it's very fun, actually. And it's going to be hard for me to sell this game to anyone else that doesn't really look for great stories in games. But I would urge anyone that even has any interest in like great sci-fi stories to take a look at the game. If you're not pulled into the overall presentation and the story and how it's presented within the next like hour or two, like I would be pretty shocked because I was pulled in very quickly. And despite the game being like a 30-hour affair, when I did everything, I think you could probably go through the main story in about 20. It ended up being my favorite game of the year in a year where it was just stacked with really great games that I could have made easily like a 15 to 20 game list. So, yep, that's it.
All right. So I will move on to Drew and his magnificent list.
His 3. Drew?
No, I
What's your 3?
have 10.
Oh, shit!
But here's the problem.
Oh, no.
Multiple things that Jay said that he was not going to put on his list just because I have on my list.
Alright.
Hey, Jay said he wasn't going to put remakes or remasters, but he put Final Fantasy on there, so whatever.
I had 3 on mine, bud, so...
This was even remakes, man, so
yeah.
to you.
It don't matter, Drew. Put what you want on there, what you love, brother.
So there's 2 on here that you could call bullshit on. and that's totally fine. But this is my list, and I don't care.
I don't give a fuck what you think.
Bullshit.
So let's start off with the games that really disappointed me. All right, I wouldn't say disappointed me. One of them disappointed me. The other two were just crap. The one that disappointed me was Marvel's Avengers. That game is not bad. That game is boring.
Yep.
It just didn't have. We really don't need any more games as a service.
No.
We don't. I think that time has ended. And they had a great structure there. They had a pretty decent story to go along with it. But the things wrapped around that game were very uninteresting to me. I hate to say that because there's a lot of potential in that game.
Working off you said it's not bad, it's boring. I'd argue boring is worse.
Yeah.
Like we had a year of the bad game and we walked through most of them, and honestly the bottom of the list were just broken, and then everything else, they were boring games that were the issue. It wasn't that they were necessarily bad.
Yeah.
Right? Like the broken ones were more. Perfect Weapon is more interesting to talk about than. Oh, see, I can't even think of
Duke Nukem Forever.
Matt Hazard, yeah. Like, what am I going to say after 5 seconds? But boy, I can rip into Ride to Hell.
God.
There's something funny in it, at least, even though we were dead by that point. But
the three sex scenes that you do fully clothed. Yeah.
Anyways.
Oh my god, that game.
That's what Marvel needs. Is Marvel Avengers needs fully clothed
sex scenes
in the super suits.
Iron Man having sex in his own suit. Yeah. God.
Okay.
The other two games that are just bad. Slide Stars.
See, we both had our shit ones. We both had them. Great.
And Remothered Broken Porcelain.
God, I forgot about
that game was just not fun to me. Like it was a stealth game where the stealth was broken, much like the porcelain. So
Remothered Broken Shitter.
Also, trying to figure out what that. So I didn't know it was a sequel, and trying to figure out what happened in that game, you can forget it. Apparently, the first game is nuts too. Coming up with my honorable mentions, I have Pikmin 3 Deluxe. That's a fun game. It's a really well-made game as well. Spiritfarer, which I don't think anybody has on their list.
No, I remember that game though. The boat with the talking animals.
Yes, yes.
I played it. It was great.
Yeah, I really enjoyed my time with that game. I didn't put enough time into it to fully evaluate it, but I thought that the animations were fantastic. I thought the story was really good. They had some really touching moments in that game.
I got to one moment in that game, Drew. It depressed me so much that I stopped playing the game.
Yeah,
but it was beautiful. Yeah.
Was it with the Fox character?
It was the one with the Alzheimer's.
Oh yes.
Yes.
Yeah. That game is sad.
It is a game about death. So.
Oh yeah, you are ferrying dead people to the afterlife. Next one, something that has been in the making for 8 years. Kentucky Route Zero TV edition. Kentucky Route Zero finally finished in 2020. I think it started in 2011, maybe.
Probably.
It's a long time ago, to say the least. I thought that game was strange and weird, but it did some things that I thought was like really unique. And had I experienced a lot of those things when it first, like the first episode came out, I've been like, yeah, this blows me away. I still think it's really good. but it is a strange game that I don't think a lot of people will get into. I think it's maybe too artsy fartsy for a lot of people. And I usually hate the artsy fartsy games.
Yeah, 7 years.
7 years
Yeah.
to make that game. Next one, honorable mention is The Tourist. So in love with that game. I played it for 3 days. That's all I played.
Do you actually finish it?
No.
That last
The
chamber
jumping
sucks.
the jumping in that game sucks.
The last chamber is like one of the worst things, which sucks because the rest of the game is so good.
I don't
Yeah.
remember the last chamber exactly, but the
Ugh.
surfing minigame can fuck itself.
Oh, the surfing minigame is worse than TNC surf design, motherfucker.
Oh, yeah. I hated it. But I made it through to the end of that game, and I will say that they should have had a better ending, but they implied there might be more, and I'm okay with that.
Okay.
Because the story was not the main focus of that game at all.
Could you tell me what the story was? Because I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, exactly my point. Yeah.
I was a dude with glasses and a mustache running around.
Yeah, and then
Fucking Magnum
other
PI.
things happen.
Yeah. I was nerdy Magnum PI. Running around a bunch of islands,
Hell
jumping
yeah.
on things. It was fun. And the last honorable mention is because I didn't play enough of it, and this game is still rough as hell. Phasmophobia. That's a fun game. That's a scary game, especially for how ridiculous the game actually looks. Especially when you're playing with 4 people running around. You're just these people move it's like they're stick figures running around. It's ridiculous. But it's been a while since I've been legitimately scared like that. That game does a really good job with its horror elements. So, I don't know if I can do this in a particular order with my top. I know what my game of the year is.
Just list them.
So I'll
I
start.
never mine, but so did Jay, but that doesn't mean you have to.
All right. I'll start with the ones that will not be my top games, but are still my top 10 kind of thing. The first one, and get ready for some bullshit because I'm going to throw some stuff on here that probably shouldn't be on here. Tetris Effect Connected.
Why shouldn't that be on there?
Because people will say Tetris Effect came out 2 years ago.
Yeah, but Tetris
You've
Effect
also-
Connected didn't.
Yeah,
True.
that game, the multiplayer adds a lot to that game.
Yeah.
And let's
That
be fair,
was
Drew,
missing-
the Tourist didn't come out this year either.
Well, technically, yeah, it was on Switch before.
Yep, and PC
But-
last year.
But I don't think it was on PC.
Tourist was
last
on
year.
PC, wasn't it?
No, I think it was only Switch originally. Because
Huh.
I would have played it on PC. I'd been waiting for it, and it wasn't on PC.
Oh. Regardless,
But,
Tetris Effect Connected is fine.
And it's very much something that was missing from the original release. The fact that I could not play multiplayer with my friends. So
So yeah, that's a absolutely fantastic game. The next one on my list, and I don't think it's going to be on anybody else's list. I don't even think anybody even remembers this game. I absolutely adored it. 9 Monkeys of Shaolin.
What?
Exactly.
We have that conversation every time Drew talks about 9 Monkeys of Shaolin.
9 Monkeys of Shaolin is a legit beat 'em up that nobody played.
I played it and I loved
I
it.
know. It is amazing. In fact, as much as I respect Streets of Rage 4, I did not beat Streets of Rage 4. I beat 9 Monkeys of Shaolin.
It's good.
And Nine
man.
Monkeys of Shaolin is I mean, you play that game, you'll be like, yeah, I think a very small development crew made this. Because it does come off a little cheap, but damn, is that game not fun.
That game was real good.
I probably never play this game because it does not look great on screenshots at the very least. It looks like a very budget, kind of ugly looking 3D aspect. But I guess the gameplay is good.
It plays amazing.
Okay, fair.
It is a great playing beat 'em up. I mean, there's tons of combos you can do. You can reflect stuff back at guys. It makes you feel like a freaking Shaolin monk. like that game really does. But yeah, I absolutely adored that game. Next on my list, this is another one that didn't come out this year technically, or this past year. Glass Masquerade #2. I don't care what anybody says. That came out on Xbox One, and my wife and I sat down and played that together, and had a ball with it.
Game's awesome.
It's better than the first game. Don't you go?
I don't know about that. Okay, yeah, the hard mode does make that game better.
And having to rotate the pieces, like that is...
I prefer the puzzles in the first game, though.
The actual design of the puzzles is better in the first game.
Yes, yes.
But the actual solving of it feels better in the second, and that's what I'm there for. But yes, I thought the stained glass art was better in the first game.
Next game on the list. Another possible bullshit game. Super Mario 3D All-Stars.
I didn't put this on my list because I didn't know... I don't know. It's a collection of games that they didn't really do shit to.
Can I argue for it even though I haven't played it?
No, I mean, I don't have a problem with him having it on his list. I'm just saying why I didn't put it on my list. I loved it.
I think it's an absolutely fantastic collection, and I have no other way of playing those games.
It's the first time that both Sunshine and Galaxy have been in HD.
Yeah, I mean,
it's
and like
beautiful.
Also, the first time those games have been portable.
That too, but more than anything, like the fact that they actually did work on Sunshine and Galaxy too. Well, Galaxy maybe not as much, but to make it widescreen and everything. Like I have an HDMI out on the GameCube. I get the best image out of the GameCube. It does not look anywhere near as good as it should. Of course, you could emulate via Dolphin and get the games looking that well, but they had to redo the controls for both those titles. Like they put a lot of work into that just doesn't show up on our end the same way, right? So yeah. I've heard the same comment be made, not so much for Game of the Year, but just in general, and it's like it's a little bit more than just the Super Mario All-Stars ROM on a disc that they released on Wii, years ago.
You really want me to piss off people? I'll tell you this: it was my favorite Nintendo release this year.
All right, well that might do it.
There's only two other ones, Ken.
I mean,
and
that's
one
fair.
Of them I didn't play, unfortunately.
And one of them is some people's Game of the Year, so there is that.
Wow.
You're forgetting Age of Calamity. All right.
No, that's one of them that I'm thinking of.
I'm purposely forgetting Age of Calamity. Well, there's Age of
Calamity. I thought you were talking Pikmin 3.
Pikmin 3, and then also 3. Animal Crossing.
Yeah.
Well, and then there was Paper Mario, too.
Everybody forgot about Paper Mario.
Oh, yeah.
Jay even goes, oh, yeah.
Completed it. Totally forgot it exists.
So that's the thing is, like, people have told me you really need to play this Paper Mario game. It's legit.
Yep, that's what I've heard, too, and I just haven't had time to play it yet. I don't own it yet, but
it's not bad.
I don't have.
I have
played
played
it.
every Paper Mario, so I'll end up playing it. But
yeah,
I've heard it's the best writing that series had. I don't know if that's true, but I've heard that game is a lot more than just the jokes that Mario and Luigi kind of became. So.
Color Splash had some really good writing in it too. Like it was comedic.
This was a little bit more than just comedic, though. I've heard
that
there's some really good emotional moments, which is weird to say about a Paper Mario game.
Yeah, no kidding. Up next, Doom Eternal. I played a good amount of that. The unfortunate thing is I played a good amount of that on the Switch. It's still a good game, even on the Switch. But man, is it ugly.
I don't remember what do you expect.
Drew, I played that game in ultra wide 144 hertz locked and ultra nightmare, man.
That's not how Drew played that game.
I played that game in 480p. I'll tell you one thing.
It was also an ultra nightmare.
it ran at 60 frames per second the entire time.
I mean, that's why it was in 4. I don't even know that I would say it's 480p, Drew. We might be looking at 480i.
Yeah, it's rough looking. But I have to give it to them though. They made that game run smooth as butter
Hey, that's all
on
that
the
matters.
Switch.
If that game takes any award, I think it should be the most well optimized game of the year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean
Yeah.
that game runs like butter on everything you play it on.
It's also
It's
small.
awesome.
It's also small.
Yeah, it's
You
not
know,
a big
it
game.
looks great and it's small. Call of Duty Modern Warfare, you fuck. take some notes.
Yeah, Call of Duty is a game
Oh
that's
my
like
God.
6 billion gigabytes.
No kidding. Up next, Xenoblade Chronicles X.
Hell yeah. When's Xenosaga though?
I've never played. I never played Xenoblade Chronicles before. Yeah, that's a fantastic game.
You're talking the remaster on Switch.
Yes, that's
Sorry,
what
you
I'm
said
talking about.
Xenoblade Chronicles X, and I was like,
No,
the Wii U
that's
one?
that's the Wii U one that,
Yeah, okay.
that we'll never ever get, and I really want that one because I never finished it. It's the only game I'm keeping my Wii U for.
Yeah, it's the only like Nintendo published game that hasn't gotten the definitive edition.
Yeah, it
Guys,
has got the Switch.
Hold
for it.
on. You're just waiting for Animal Crossing Amiibo Festival to Switch.
Y'all forget about Wind Waker and Twilight Princess made it to the
Yeah,
Wii U as
those.
well. I want
Right.
those. I want Wind
Star
Waker on the
Fox?
Switch.
Star Fox Zero with real controls.
No,
Please,
I
God.
don't want Star Fox Zero. That game.
With real controls?
It's still not that good a game.
Oh, God. How would you know? It's hidden behind
Well,
shitty
that's
fucking-
fair, but still, I didn't. Yeah.
I would love to finally play Skyward Sword because I
No, you
would
wouldn't.
refuse.
No,
I
you
refuse to
don't.
play it with.
No.
No. Yeah,
Would you like a bloated Zelda game?
I mean,
very
Controls
bloated-
aren't the problem with that game, Drew.
yeah. Well, that's the thing that made me not play it.
Well,
Here's
all you got to do is
10
try to get through the
hours
tutorial.
of the
You'll
tutorial.
stop playing it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But think about it this way, right? As a completionist, I have finished every mainline Zelda game except for Skyward Sword. It's like a blotch on my resume.
No, it's not.
I kinda wanna
I
finish
couldn't
it.
finish that game. I made fuck. I was like 40 hours in that game, and I was like, I just can't do this anymore.
Yeah, it's not good. It's not a good
Play-
game.
Play Twilight Princess 2 more times and just call it a day. It's got a similar art style.
Play Link to the Past and Link Between Worlds instead.
Yeah. Play
Yeah.
anything
Yeah.
except for Skyward Sword.
Get a friend.
Damn.
play
That's why I'm doing
Triforce
Ocarina of
Heroes,
Time.
Yeah, you're doing a good thing. Don't play Skyward Sword. It's
Import Tingle's Rosy Rupee Land. Do anything.
motherfucker. I play crossbow training before I play that shit. No.
I like crossbow training.
But Xenoblade Chronicles. That's a fantastic game. The only bad thing about that game is that, man, they say the exact same lines over and over again, and you get into combat a lot in that game.
So
Well,
it's
you-
Dragon's Dogma, is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, Dragon's
Yes.
Dogma, where they're constantly saying the same thing.
Over and over again, yeah.
It's Ryan time.
Oh,
I'm really
oh,
feeling it.
I believe we are in a cave, Arisen. I believe we
Yep.
are in a cave, Arisen.
There
I
ought
said
fear
so
fire.
good. God. But no,
No,
it's a great
it's
game.
ill-like. Their lot ill-like fire arisen.
Yeah. Arisen.
Shepard.
Rex.
Shepherd. Let's see here. The next on my list, Resident Evil 3.
Ooh, nice.
That's the first
Yep.
time that game's come up this time. this year.
I thought it was great.
It was.
I mean, it was. It will never be Resident Evil 2,
no, you can't.
unfortunately.
Yeah, they kind of did that backwards. They probably should have remade 3 first and then 2, because then 3 would have been better received.
3
Yeah.
may have actually sold more.
Yeah.
Especially if you're dangling the carrot of you don't buy this,
You're not
get
getting
Resident
2?
Evil 2.
The package of Resident Evil 2 remake is a lot bigger than Resident Evil 3, if we're being honest.
Oh, absolutely. 3 was an experimental game.
Yeah. But it's still a great game. Looks amazing and plays great as well.
That thing runs locked 60 on Series X and PS5 now. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I haven't loaded it up since I got my Series X. I need to try that.
It's so beautiful.
Love what they did with Carlos and Jill in Resident Evil 3, by the way. Their chemistry was great. Love playing
Yeah.
those guys.
Yeah.
Up next, this is another one of those bullshit games, but I'm throwing it on here because I played it in 2020 and it revitalized. What?
It's Among Us?
No, it's not Among Us.
Okay.
Among Us should be on there, but I mean, I get it. Among Us came out in 2018.
Yeah, I that's the reason why I didn't include it even
Yeah.
in honorable mentions. So
No,
we've had that convo now.
This is Monster Hunter World Iceborne.
Oh yeah.
Iceborne came out on PC in January,
Yes, it
Fair enough. Okay.
and I played all of Iceborne on PC. That revitalized my love for Monster Hunter because I kind of fell off Monster Hunter for a long time,
Mhm.
and then I booted up Iceborne and immediately was like, "Yes, I want to see everything there is to see in this game." And holy crap, Iceborne changed Monster Hunter. Like they added so many different things to it. That is a game in and of itself,
Yep.
and it is just the expansion.
Yeah, expansion they supported for a year and like some change with
Yeah.
new content. Yeah, for free.
It's amazing. But yeah, I did throw it on there because
Did you beat Fatalis, Drew?
was that the
The Black
What's that?
Dragon, the final DLC.
no, dude? I haven't played any of the DLC that they released.
Come on, man, DLC is amazing.
I know, dude. I have yet to do Behemoth.
Well, Behemoth was Monster Hunter World DLC. Iceborne DLC it was the other stuff.
I know.
Yeah.
But the last DLC thing I did was the Kulatath,
Kuna Matata? What?
the gold dragon.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, Kulva Tarve or something like that. I forget his
Yeah, I did that one, and
Y'all just making up names now, aren't you?
no, Capcom just makes up names.
name. Did you fight Bob Saget though? Did you?
Did I fight Bob Saget?
Yeah.
Bob Saget. You're gonna have to remind me.
Sorry.
He was in Full House.
I mean, I know who Bob Saget is.
Bob's
hosted America's Funniest Home Videos for a while there.
Yeah, long time there.
best scene with him in it is in the Dumb and Dumber. What was it, Dumb and Dumber?
Yeah,
When
or there's shit everywhere.
There's shit everywhere.
Shit all over the walls. Oh God. Jesus.
Best scene in that movie.
It is the best scene in that movie because that movie sucked.
I didn't hate it, but that was definitely the best scene.
Number 2 game of the year. Immortals: Phoenix Rising.
Yeah.
I gotta play this game, y'all.
This game
Dude, you
is so
do.
good.
Everyone's list.
Like I put it this way: it is Breath of the Wild meets Kingdoms of Amalur.
Ooh,
But the story,
that.
And then the story is great. The story is very lighthearted and goofy.
people were mad
everybody-
because Zeus made a weed joke, but come on, man.
I mean, everybody in this is so fucking good. Like that's the thing. Is like the combat is relatively simplistic. But well, you know, they give you a lot of tools to throw at enemies.
It is, but that game like when I started realizing some of the stuff I could do in combat, I was like, oh, this is way more complex than just hacking, slashing, and then trying to parry. I was impressed with how deep that system went for as shallow as it looks. Not that it's some deep fighting system. It's, it's not that much, but it's like, oh, there's more to this than kind of what they teach you.
Yeah, I mean that's why I get the Amalur stuff because it feels like
okay.
Amalur combat. But it's definitely Breath of the Wild exploration, down to the climbing with stamina meter. It's, in fact, I saw some really, I don't know, I would call them not fun people to be around on Twitter. just railing on that game, saying it's just a complete and blatant ripoff of Breath of the Wild.
Oh, for fuck's sake!
And they were like, yeah, we're not going to give this game any credit because it's just a ripoff of Breath of the Wild. You can quietly go into a corner and fuck yourself because what the fuck is wrong? Well, yeah, because I don't want to hear you. But I'm just like, who gives a shit?
People
Breath of
are
the Wild's
so
a great.
miserable fucking people.
That's the thing is like everybody clamored about God of War. Hey, lest we forget, God of War is a ripoff of Devil May Cry, but nobody gave that game shit.
I mean, the new God of War is a Metroid game, so there is that.
So I mean, whatever. That's like, but I saw a lot of people saying that, and then a lot of people like replying to it. It looked like a reset error thread almost, and I was just
well,
like, wow,
I'm
what
sure
a
it
bunch of
was.
pretentious assholes. Like you're gonna
Zelda took a lot from Hydlide.
At least it didn't. At least it didn't take the crappiness of Hydlide.
You're absolutely correct. But I mean, like Hydlide, all these old PC games, you don't have Zelda. Nothing's made in a vacuum. In fact, the best games generally aren't, because then you get some really weird experimental Russian games.
You know who says hi? Blizzard.
Well, yeah, you know who Blizzard and BioWare and all those guys say hi to? Lord British.
Yep.
It's okay to take a game that and the inspiration is good. It's not like, Hades was the first roguelike.
No. But anybody out there who is listening who has not tried Immortals yet, you really need to at least give it a shot.
Also,
I'm on it.
Let's be honest, to all the people that are hating out there, you're not going for every stupid little Korok seed shit to get the golden poop in Zelda. You're not doing it. You've done all the shrines. You've maybe upgraded all the armor if you're really crazy, at most. But you've beaten the boss. There's no other Zelda game out right now. Might as well. It's on Switch. Nintendo didn't look at it and go, this is a ripoff. We're not putting it on your console. It's a good game.
Nintendo also puts fucking porn games on the
Okay,
eShop
well,
now, so
I mean, listen.
I don't think they
You're
care.
the one that said it, yeah, but I'm just saying.
Also, the vague Mediterranean accents, yes, they are very strong in this game.
I mean, it's a Ubisoft game. They're gonna have terrible accents for
I'm very glad that that's sticking.
I mean, it's almost
Mediterranean accent, vague Mediterranean accent.
It is really like
It's a
it's
fantastic
jarring.
description.
Yeah, it's very jarring.
It's not Greek.
No,
But it's not Greek either.
No.
Yeah. And it's not Italian, but it's not Italian either.
Yeah, it's, they got kind of that inflection going on a couple of the characters.
it's so strange. Everybody speaks that way. But Zeus reminds me every time I hear Zeus talk. There was a DLC in one of the Borderlands games where what's the name of the guy who sells the guns?
Mr. Torg?
No, not Torque. The vendor.
Marcus.
Marcus. There's a part in one of the DLCs where he's telling the story of the DLC and he's talking to a kid. And at the end of it, the kid keeps asking him questions. And he tells him, God, would you stop asking questions? You're adopted. And that's how it ends. And Zeus reminds me of that moment. Where he's just like, he's so pissed off at Prometheus that he just tell him you're adopted. But it's really good.
I like that. I didn't ask for this. Elias Tufexis is Prometheus.
It's good stuff.
Dude, what? It was just such a weird, because he said that on Twitter that he's like, I love watching my kid play this so I can be Prometheus in person.
Play that game.
It's really good. It's really good. And then my number one game of the year is Animal Crossing: New Horizons.
Yay!
Nice.
I think that was a game I played. I couldn't even tell you. I could turn on my Switch and let you know, but I'm guessing around 60 hours.
That's it?
Oh, Drew, that's lightweight.
Yeah.
I mean, that's me going in and doing my daily stuff every day.
How do you find out how long you've played?
It's in the
It's
Switch.
in your activity on the
It's in your
Switch.
activities.
Yeah, Switch menu.
But yeah, I don't care about my house in that game. Like I don't spend time decorating and stuff like that. I just do the stuff. What I want to do is get all the fish and all the bugs in that game.
I want to get all the fish and all the bugs.
I've
Oh,
already
yeah.
played for over 25 hours. I've had this since Christmas.
I could be more than that. I don't know.
I have a feeling you're more than
I'm
that.
at 100. I'm at 165, I think. So
So-
I haven't played it for months.
In Ryan hours, it's like 16,000 hours, man.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, for a while there, I did drop off that game, but I did pick it back up. So, like, pretty much all of the fall, I didn't play any of it. I
Same.
just recently picked it back up.
Well, you'll never get all the bugs now.
Well, I'll just wait till next fall. Who cares?
So I've owned that game for like 4 months now, but I have not started it yet. Not because I don't want to play it, but because I think I might spend too much time playing it. If that makes sense to you. I had this experience with 3DS Animal Crossing. I forget which one that was. I think
New
it was
Leaf?
New
New
Leaf.
Leaf. Yeah, New Leaf.
Yeah.
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 So I played that game like religiously. That became like a part of my daily schedule where I would check in every morning and then do stuff at nighttime. And I was spending, I think I probably put like 600 hours in that game at the end of it. So I don't want to do that again. So I'm hoping, or rather, if I become unemployed at some point, that's when I'll plug that game in and I'll give it a shot. And then I'll also play Final Fantasy 14 as well. And then the games that I've really wanted to play but don't want to spend the time to do so will have come true.
New
You
Leaf
were-
got crazier too, by the way.
Yeah, that like hearing New Leaf and see how many things have changed since I stopped playing that game.
Puzzle
It's
game.
insane.
If you have a 3DS in the game, it gives you a puzzle, like a puzzle league game. And if you have a Wii U, it allows you to play Desert Island Escape from Animal Crossing Amiibo Festival on the 3DS. And then there's a campsite where random seasonal villagers can come, and then you have all the amiibo act. Oh, that game became huge, and it's just I'm waiting to see if they implement any of that stuff in New Horizons. I agree with you, Drew. It's a great game. I mean, it bumped its way up to 4, and I've only had it for 3 weeks. But every day I'm in.
Yep.
All
It's
right.
a fantastic game. It is my game of the year.
I guess it's time to move on to the Wombat.
All right. So I'll start with some honorable mentions. Well, I'm going to start with an honorable mention that is actually a last year game that came out in late September or mid-September of last year, and if I had played it last year, it would have been very high on my list. That's Greedfall. So if you guys have not played Greedfall, it is an excellent sort of older BioWare style. When I say older, really what I mean is like first Mass Effect or first Dragon Age BioWare RPG. It's an excellent game. You should play it.
It's available free on PlayStation Plus this month and on Game Pass for
And on Game
Xbox
Pass.
and
And it
PC.
has and
Very nice.
and if you heard Mass Effect, if it's like oh, it's like Mass Effect 1, and then you had flashbacks to the combat in Mass Effect 1, the combat's much better than this.
Combat's more like I would say the combat's a little bit like The Witcher is probably the best analog I can think of for the combat. So
So I downloaded it. I'm waiting to play it. So definitely.
yeah, you would like it, Jay. I think it's got some jank to it for sure, but it's well worth. I really enjoyed the story, so it's worth sticking it out. I think.
Excellent.
Also on my honorable mentions list, Battletoads, which is a great co-op beat 'em up, and I, like Anthony, really enjoy beat 'em up games. So that's a good one. Not not good enough to make it its way into my top 10, but good enough that I felt like it deserved a mention at least. I'm gonna add Phantasy Star Online 2 as an honorable mention as well on the Xbox. exclusively because it gave me an opportunity to experience Phantasy Star again, which I spent hundreds and hundreds of hours in on the Dreamcast. So I was glad that that game came out this year, and I figure if I'm glad it came out, it might as well get an honorable mention. And then my last honorable mention is Phoenix Rising, and really it's only an honorable mention because I've barely played any of it. So I'm sure if I had had an opportunity to play more of it, it would have been much higher on the list, but I just haven't yet. I'm playing it actually with my son, so it's not one of the games that I'm playing sort of by myself. I'm playing it with him when we have an opportunity to play stuff together. So I'm sure it'll be one next year that I say, man, if I'd finished that last year, it would have been on my Game of the Year list. All right, so getting into it. Number 10 for me is MLB The Show 20, which is an excellent baseball game. And I really like the refinements they've made to the career mode this year. I like the fact that on PlayStation 5, the load times are very, very short. It's a great baseball game. They have done a lot of really good things in this newest version. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what the next one looks like, considering the next one's going to be multi-plat and won't be PlayStation exclusive anymore. But should be, I hope, built from the ground up to take advantage of the next-gen systems. Number 9 is Streets of Rage 4. I can't put it any better than Anthony did, so I'm just going to let his description hold. But I really love that game, and I thought they did an amazing job with it. And visually, it was one of my favorite looking games of the year. Number 8, another game that people have accused of being a Breath of the Wild clone this year. That's Genshin Impact, which is visually a Breath of the Wild clone and does have the stamina meter and a glider and all that stuff, but also has a really cool character switching combat system that allows you to, switch between characters with different elements on the fly in the middle of combos, so that you can, soak people in water and then hit them with lightning, and create a combo off of that, or start a fire and then use a character who has a tornado power to turn it into a fire tornado. It's a really fun game, especially for the cost of entry, and is fun enough to play without having to spend any money on it. So I can definitely see why people would spend money on it, because it's got a lot of different characters and stuff like that. But in my experience, you can have a decent amount of fun with it without even spending $1, which I haven't spent $1 on it. So that's how I know that's the case. Next on my list was the Demon's Souls remake, and I agree with Jay, which is why it's a little bit lower on my list, that it's just a remake, but at the same time I felt like it deserved a spot on my list just based on the quality of the remake. It's exceptional, and what you're always looking for, at least what I'm always looking for in a remake or a remaster, is that it makes the game look the way you remember it looking.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what this Demon's Souls game does. I remember being really impressed when the first Demon's Souls came out at the way it looked. And looking back at it now, it was not the most visually impressive game. But this game is gorgeous. And the gameplay is flawless still. I mentioned a couple weeks ago, it's, I've played Dark Souls, I've played Bloodborne, I've played Sekiro. This is by far my favorite of the Souls games, and the remake has done a terrific job. And it's a very strange kind of nostalgia for me because, as I mentioned before in the podcast, I reviewed this game when it came out the first time, and so I was playing it on a pre-release copy. It didn't have a box. It didn't have fancy disc art. Like, I was playing it before most people were playing it, And so at the time, it was incredibly confusing. And it was hard to figure out what was going on. Playing it now with the benefit of not only knowing how the series operates, but also, having a better understanding, even makes me appreciate the game even more. And I gave it a 9 when it came out the first time. So, it's just an exceptionally well done remake of an exceptionally good game. So I felt like it deserved to have a spot on the list. Number 6 is Astro's Playroom. No, is that what it's called?
Yes.
What's it called? Yeah, Astro's Playroom.
Yep. That's because the other one's Astro VR something. I don't remember. It's confusing.
Astrobot. Yeah, Rescue Mission.
Rescue
Yeah.
Mission.
You're right.
Yeah.
So it is not an exceptionally long game, but it is packed full of really awesome PlayStation references, and also a lot of really cool sort of unlockable models of various pieces in PlayStation's history. And on top of all the fan service, it's a really, really well done third-person platforming game. So for a pack-in to end up having a place on my game of the year in this generation is pretty impressive. So they did a tremendous job with that game. Number 5 on my list was The Pathless, which is a game that was really good, looked exceptionally good, played really well. I wish it had had more variety to its puzzle solving, and I wish they had fleshed out the narrative more, because it had the beginnings of an interesting story, just didn't have enough meat on the bone. And I wish it hadn't been $40 at launch, because it would have been a lot easier to recommend to a lot more people. As it stood, though, it was a very good game, and I really enjoyed finishing that one up. Number 4 was Assassin's Creed Valhalla, which is, even though I have not liked it as much as I liked Odyssey, I still think it's a really fun game, and I still really enjoy what I've played of it. It looks fantastic on next gen. And I enjoy most of the voice acting, some of it, in a typical Assassin's Creed fashion. There's some weak voice acting mixed in there, but most of it's pretty good. And I've enjoyed the story as well. So that one takes the number 4 spot on my list. Number 3 is Animal Crossing New Horizon, which, as I mentioned already, I played for 160 some hours this year. And it was just the best thing I can say about Animal Crossing is it was the perfect game at the perfect time. And, it hit at a time when there was a lot of uncertainty, and, a lot of people were working from home that weren't used to working from home. And nobody really quite knew what was going to happen. Nobody knew how long we were going to be locked down. Nobody knew how long things were going to be a problem. And that game was kind of the shiny, happy fantasy that I think just about everybody kind of needed at the time. So I really enjoyed that game, as is evident by the amount of time that I put into it. Number 2 for me was Spider-Man Miles Morales. Jay made a lot of really good points about Miles Morales earlier, and I'll echo all of those. I think they did a really commendable job of fleshing Miles out as a character, even across what was a much shorter game. The gameplay was phenomenal. It looked phenomenal. My favorite thing about the game is the fact that so there are a lot of games that will have, or in movies too, movies are guilty of this too, that will have reveals or twists or, oh, I bet you didn't see that coming kind of moments. And there's 2 things about Miles that I found most impressive with respect to those kind of moments. And number 1 is that they don't focus on treating them as surprises to the player. They focus on treating them as surprises to the characters in the game. which just grounds what they're trying to do from a storytelling perspective. Too many times I see games where it's clear that the shock and awe is directed at the player and not at the characters in the game, which makes the twist just feel kind of disconnected. This game does a fantastic job of making the twists be twists to Miles or to other characters in the game that you as the player just get to experience sort of vicariously through them. The second thing it does is it doesn't treat the player like they're stupid. And as soon as you figure out what's happening, they tell you what's happening. They don't waste. And the best example I can think of this is something like Arkham Knight, where most people had the big shock in Arkham Knight figured out, like, I don't know, 6-7 hours into the game.
Oh no, they had that before release.
Well, I mean people who were cautious about spoilers. I'm talking about the
okay.
gameplay itself. In the gameplay itself, even if you hadn't watched a single spoiler or trailer, you could figure out who it was in the first 5-6 hours. And then they spend 10 more hours trying to convince you don't know who it is. And it was like, come on, I know who this is. Why are we dragging this out? Miles is completely opposite to that. As soon as you figure out what's happening, they tell you what's happening. And which is the way it should be, in my opinion. They shouldn't spend a whole lot of time bouncing around stuff that the players already figured out. So I really had a lot of respect for the way they told the story in that game. And the most important thing that I think that game does is that it legitimizes Miles as a main character in that universe, not a side character, but a main character in that universe. And they've built it well enough that they could easily, if they wanted to, have more Spider-Man games that involve both Miles and Peter, or involve only one or the other. So really well done. And then my number one game of the year, probably no surprise to anybody, is Ghost of Tsushima. I loved that game, top to bottom. And Jay's commentary about it earlier was completely spot on. It is incredibly cinematic. It is incredibly emotional. They do one of the best jobs of any game that I've ever played at connecting you to the main character and sort of the struggle the internal struggle that he feels, and the way that internal struggle also plays out in the gameplay of the game, and the way they connect it to the gameplay in the game is amazing. And story top to bottom is fantastic. And not to mention, so all of that aside, the fact that it does everything that it does incredibly well. Jay is correct. It has some of the collectathon stuff, but I happen to be somebody who loves that, so it was perfect for me. All of that aside, they released this game that was exceptionally good, and then also months later added in a completely free online multiplayer that's not just co-op through the story, but has a completely different set of rules and story connotations around it and visual design. That game, to me, was just the landmark achievement of this year. And I felt like it absolutely had to have the spot at the top. And that's it.
All right. Well, just like
So,
every
Ken, what were your favorite games of the year?
so just like every year, I sit and I listen to everybody and I go, am I going to get one or two games that nobody's talked about yet? And I do. I have a couple.
Oh, nice.
I'll start with my disappointments, which does include two games that nobody's mentioned yet, which kind of shocked me. The first one being Marvel's Avengers, which Drew's already covered that. I think I'm not disappointed in, like, I expected it to be amazing. I mean, I'm disappointed in the fact that it's made by probably one of my favorite developers, and it's just super disappointing that this is probably the worst game they've ever put out. The second disappointment, it's weird that this game only gets mentioned during this part. Cyberpunk 2077.
Yeah,
I didn't
Well, it's
play
got
enough
Game-
of it
I
to
didn't want to
have an
mention it.
opinion. Yeah,
That game
I
didn't come out.
purposely put it down before I could have an opinion, waiting for the next gen version.
And
Um,
that's truly why I put it in my disappointments, because I was so looking forward to playing it, and I just lost all interest in playing it because of the issues and everything else around it.
Yeah,
I put 3 hours into that game, and I have no opinion on it because, well, I'm not playing that game until they finish it.
Yeah, and that's what's disappointing about it for me, is that game technically came out in 2020 and none of us want to play it yet.
Well,
True.
I guess I'm the only person that's beat the game then.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So it was going to be my disappointment of the year, and I was gonna go up into this field, but I didn't really want to go deep into it. But I'll just say one thing and just kind of leave it at that. I think CD Projekt Red has a reputation, rightfully so, of creating these games that oftentimes raise the bar. I think Witcher 3 raised the bar on open world games and storytelling, side quest quality. And I was hoping that Cyberpunk would be the same. And while it does have some great missions and side characters that you'll encounter, and the visual fidelity as an open world game is truly state of the art, given the performance requirements that's needed, but it came out in such a state where what could and easily would have been a 9 to a 9.5 game was demoted down to something like a 7, where I was constantly interrupted, not just by some random jank open world stuff, but bombarded by these quest breaking things where I have to go back to a checkpoint and try the same mission again, wasting 10, 15, 20 minutes of my time, able to collect things that I killed off of enemies, and basically like tons and tons of things that just got in the way of my enjoyment of the game. And it just saddens me because this is going to be another case. Like CD Projekt Red, I think, was at kind of like their heights after their Witcher 3, and even the fucking the Gwent game that they created was fantastic. I love that game. And then now they come out with this, one of the most, actually, I would say, can we safely agree that this was the most anticipated game of the year as like a video
yeah,
game, right?
I think
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then they have all this build up and 7 years of development to come out with this. And I understand that there is so many elements surrounding it with their management trying to get this out, and all these delays and other things of them being too ambitious and everything. But now their name is no longer going to be synonymous with quality. They got this stain on their reputation forever. It was kind of like that moment when Blizzard no longer was like that surefire company. Oh, it's got that Blizzard logo on it. It's going to be great. It's got that Squaresoft logo on it. It's going to be great. You have those
BioWare.
companies. Yeah, BioWare as well, of course. And that confidence that you have on a company, that developer, to have lost yet another one, it just really saddens me deeply. Because I feel
agree.
like there is literally none of them left. It was Platinum went down as well, and like, it's just so sad, dude. I hate it. I hate it so much.
Yeah, I still have confidence that they're going to put the work in on that game.
I do too.
But it should have been done already. And again, as I've mentioned on here before, every one of their games, at least the versions that most people remember, except for Witcher 3, is the enhanced edition. Like they come out with an enhanced edition that fix all the stuff that they broke the first time. And I'm sure they'll do the same thing here. But for a game that was as hyped as that one was, to not have had that work already is really disappointing.
Yep. And then the last game, probably nobody even remembers, came out this year, but I was kind of hyped for it, was Bleeding Edge.
Oh yeah, that game came out.
Yeah, I was thinking, we're going to get like a melee mixture kind of Overwatch game from the guys who made DMC, some of the best combat in a video game. And that game died the second hour it was out. Like, I couldn't even get a full match 2 hours after the game released. And it's
And it was on Game Pass too, right?
yeah,
Free,
and,
so,
and
yeah.
for good, for good reason. It was not very good.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's one of those. Well, I mean, it's like the Avengers. Is just, of course, it doesn't have the name recognition. What the hell is this studio, who's known for a specific thing, doing something else for? What? Who thought that was a good idea? And I know there was word in this particular scenario, but like, sometimes it's good to stick with what you're good at.
Yeah. I don't know. So those were my disappointments for the year. As far as honorable mentions, Final Fantasy VII Remake. I enjoyed the nostalgia of getting back into that world. The reason it didn't make my list is because there is just too much fluff in that game, and I don't know, not to spoil anything, but I don't know I like how it ended. I think it's just going to get stupid from here and go way off the rails from the original, and I don't want that.
Knowing Tetsuya Nomura and the whole Kingdom Hearts nonsense, I could see that very well happening. But I am just trying to be optimistic about it. We'll see.
Yeah, and I think I'm just worried that it's gonna get stupid, and I'm like, I don't want it to be stupid. I literally want that game because that's kind of the point.
But before we can get to Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2, we have to do Final Fantasy VII 358 Days Over 2 and recoded.
There'll be a portion of Final Fantasy VII Remake that is only available on your telephone.
Yes, but only in Japan.
Only in Japan.
Yes.
And then the browser-based game, and then
the musical interlude.
the concert that you have to get a piece of the story from.
Oh, no, that's Nier. That's Nier. Nier is the one where it's like, well,
Kingdom Hearts did that too.
Play. So yeah, no, but Nier is the one that's like, you didn't go to the concert, man. Guess what? There's some lore that you missed out on. Didn't read the book. At least the Final Fantasy or Kingdom Hearts was all video games, I suppose.
Yeah. Next up is Spider-Man Miles Morales. A lot of people have said a lot about that game. It is very, very good. Maneater, Anthony and I know he talked about that game. That game is like the best. It would have been the best B tier game to come out this year, and it's just because it's so ridiculously stupid.
Nice.
And it came out at a discount price. And right now, if you have a
PS5,
or you're willing to, you'd think you're going to get a PS5, and you can go to the website and click it.
Yep, you can snag the next gen version, which is nice. It's a locked frame rate, a little higher resolution, looks pretty good.
Nice.
Is it on Game Pass?
No, it is not.
Damn.
Yeah. I do have it on Xbox, and they did do a Series X patch, so it does look a lot cleaner, but it's not on Game Pass.
I'm pretty sure you can walk, in Canada anyways, you can walk into a Walmart, pick this up for like $30 physically, so...
Oh, it's totally
it's
worth,
not like it doesn't-
it's totally
Yeah.
worth $30. Next up, I don't think anybody mentioned this game, but Crash Bandicoot 4?
I didn't play
Nope.
enough of it, otherwise I would have.
I really liked that game, and it almost made my top 10, but got bumped off by something else. But I really enjoyed the return to Crash Bandicoot. And then my last honorable mention is Doom Eternal. I love that game, but I just couldn't put it in my top 10. All right, number 10, Battletoads. I think Ryan was the other person who mentioned that game. I love the hell out of that game. Some of the platforming stuff in the latter half, I thought went on too long, but outside of that, I thought the writing in that game was wonderful. It looks incredible. The combat is fun, and it's on freaking Game Pass. And even if it wasn't on Game Pass, it's what, like $15? That game is really good. Next up, I'm like Drew, I don't give a fuck. I'll do remakes, I'll do remasters, I don't care. Number 9, AVGN Deluxe for the Switch. Give me both of those games, with fixes to both of them. The first time they've been available on a console, and the fact that they're two very competent side-scrolling action games with a ton of reference to something that I have a very fond a fondness for. Like, I really love that show. So playing a really good Super Nintendo style action game in those worlds is awesome. Number 8 is a game that nobody has mentioned, probably because nobody else has played, was Dirt 5, made by the team that did MotorStorm, and you can totally feel that inspiration pulsing in that game. Like, it is a game that has, since its release, I have probably played at least 2 to 3 times a day, or a week. And I just keep playing it. It's just fun to play. It reminds me of, old school arcade racing games that are just a joy to jump in and play. And then you combine that with the fact that the game looks absolutely incredible, and supports every next-gen feature you'd want to play with, from like 120 frames per second. It's a fantastic game. Number 7's Astro's Playroom. We talked a lot about that game. For a free game, that's probably one of the best things you got with your PlayStation 5. Absolutely. If you were around for the original PlayStation, like, going through that history of the PlayStation was one of the just most joyous moments I had this year playing a game. Unlocking stupid things like memory cards and PlayStation cameras, and then being able to go into the museum and play with those. Like, punching the PlayStation 2 plays the sound, the boot up sound.
Yep.
Like,
My favorite thing is people being introduced to stuff like the multi-tap.
Yeah. And like, if you smack the multi-tap, 4 characters pick it up off the ground. Like, just all of that stuff. So awesome. Number 6 is Streets of Rage 4. Everybody's talked about that game. It is really, really good. And as mentioned, if you have Game Pass, go play it. It's just so good.
You need to listen to that soundtrack. It's really fucking good. It's by the guy whose name I can never pronounce, from France, who did like the music for Get Even and Greedfall. Yep, he's an amazing composer. You should listen to it. Also, Yuzo Koshiro returned.
You should totally go play that game. Number 5 is Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2. Like Anthony, I don't have anything to say except that it's fucking Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2.
Yeah.
And it's really fucking good.
Yes,
Activision nailed bringing back the PS1 classics this year. They really did.
And they fucking got the soundtrack. I should have mentioned
Most
that.
of it.
Like, the most of it.
Most
like,
of it.
Let's be honest. You came for Goldfinger. They have Goldfinger and other tracks that you remember.
Of course you came for Goldfinger. It's the first song that plays on the title screen.
Yes, it is. They're like, fuck the menu music from the original. We're just going to keep playing the music from the game. Yeah.
And I love that you can skip tracks just by clicking in the right stick anytime you want. It's wonderful. Nice. Number 4 is a game nobody mentioned, Ori and the Will of the Wisps.
That's an honorable mention for sure. Yeah,
that game was so good. And my God, if you have a Series X, load it up and put it in 6K downsampled mode. It looks like a fucking Disney movie. It looks so good. Holy.
With HDR, right, Ken?
Yeah, absolutely with HDR.
Yeah, that HDR on that game is tremendous.
Oh. That game is so good. I know it had issues when it launched. It had some like really weird glitches and stuff, but nothing that ever stopped me from just constantly playing that game. It was fantastic. Top 3, you probably know what they are, but the question is, what order are they in? Number 3 is Ghost of Tsushima. We've talked a lot about that game. I stand by that. That's the best thing Sony put out this year. I feel it was robbed so many places of people talking about The Last of Us. I really think Sucker Punch just outshined Naughty Dog this year in a game that, like Anthony was talking about earlier, or Drew was talking about earlier with Immortals, so many people just pegging Ghost of Tsushima as like, oh, it's Assassin's Creed Samurai, and I'm like, I don't give a fuck. It was amazing. Like, all of that checklist stuff, it was fine, but if you were not in it for that story and that cinematography and just visually stunning game that loads in like 4 seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
on last gen.
On last gen, yeah. That thing was loading in seconds on PS4.
Yeah.
So, kudos to Sucker Punch. You guys really did the best first-party Sony game this year, hands down to me. So, Number 2 is Yakuza Like a Dragon.
Hell yeah.
That game, like, I'm still playing it. I'm like 40, 50 hours into that game. I'm like at the last chapter.
Oh man.
But I just keep going around from Dragon Cart to my businesses to fucking the can collecting to the baseball stuff to, oh my god, that game. That fucking game.
But-
Every 2 steps I take, there's somebody to talk to and get a stupid story. It's amazing. And like Jay said, Ichiban, I did not think I could love a character as much as I love, Kiryu. But goddamn, if Ichiban is not one of the most lovable characters in a video game.
Yeah, he just. I don't know a single person that doesn't like Ichiban after playing a bit of Yakuza 7. It's crazy.
Oh, God, yeah. Like, every conversation that he gets in, and just how stupid he is with some things. Like,
Yeah.
he's like, I'm not going to leave my friends here. That's bullshit. Oh, man. And the fact that everything, and I really loved the fact that they narratively explain why the characters have different outfits and why when you get into a battle, the enemies change clothes. And just the fucking Pokédex is in there. It's just, there's so much in this game. I love it.
They even have like a super final dungeon for you to conquer after beating the game too. And
Yeah.
oh god, it's ridiculous.
The first dungeon that you can get to that you can like kind of grind is a fucking sewer. And it's just like, oh my god, that makes so much sense. Like, you can go in a sewer and grind for items and gear. It's like, well, of course a sewer's a dungeon in a city. Of course it is. Oh, man, that game is so good. And then my game of the year is Immortals Phoenix Rising. I can't stop playing that game. I finished it before it came out because I was reviewing it, and I have continued to return to that game on a weekly basis, just cleaning up the world, because it reminds me of Breath of the Wild, not in like the gameplay and thing. It reminds me of Breath of the Wild because it's a world that I really enjoy just being in, and like I point my character in a direction, I go and I complete stuff along the way, and I just keep playing it.
Do the weapons and stuff like that break in Immortals?
Nope.
Nope.
So confirmed better than Breath of the Wild.
Yep.
Yep, everything in that game is cosmetic. So, like your armor, your sword, you get one sword, you get one heavy weapon, and everything you collect is cosmetic. So,
Well, that's not fully true. Like,
well,
can
you
a
do get
different
perks.
axe. Yes, the weapon, you can change the base weapon, which is like the perk, and then you can change the cosmetic to make it look like any other axe model
Yes,
you
you
have,
can
or
transmog
armor.
it, but every
Yeah.
piece of equipment has one perk on it that you can upgrade. But it's not like there's 37 different swords that have different abilities or anything like
Yeah,
that.
you upgrade your armor. That is a one-time upgrade.
Yep.
Instead of like Breath of the Wild, where it's like, do you have the fairies and then the apples that it takes to upgrade this single piece of armor? Oh, you want to upgrade this armor? Well, you're going to have to look for falling stars. Yes, that's a thing I had to do.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. Did
I
you,
love
did
Breath
you do
of
it
the
multiple times? Because I did.
Yeah, I did. I played a
And it
shitload of Breath.
sucked.
The only thing I didn't do in Breath of the Wild was the Korok seeds.
Well, fuck it, I'm not doing that.
Yeah, I'm not ever doing that. But in Immortals, I think I might actually do everything. Like, I've cleared the first area. The first area is empty. I've completed every dungeon, every puzzle, every challenge. I've done everything in the first area. There's only 5 total areas, so it's not like it's going to take a ton of time. And I've cleared a bunch of the other ones too. But I just keep playing that game. I was interested in that game, and then I played it, and it was absolutely the best game I played this year. All right. I do have a couple emails and a few tweets. Your Kara sent us an email, said, here's my Game of the Year list. Number 5, Spider-Man. It looks and plays amazing on my PS5. I love Spider-Man. My 3-year-old daughter calls him Ladybug Man. Number 4 is Astro. This game brought back so many memories for me. Memories of video game nights as a kid with friends from the PS1 to now. It was great. It also reminded me of all the shit I bought that Sony released. I mean, the PSP Go, the PSP microphone add-on, the PS3 TV receiver thing. I bought everything. It sucked, but I love Sony. I'll buy it again. But yeah, Astro was amazing, and I hope to see much more in the future. Number 3 is Minecraft Earth, which is kind of hilarious because they just shut that down. This game was so much fun. It's an AR Minecraft game. Put so much time into this. Really enjoyed it. It's a shame they're closing the servers in June, though. Number 2 is Minecraft, the game that keeps on giving and taking over my life. A game released 10 years ago, and it looks like it'll be around for another 10. Always creating, always designing, always surviving. Cannot wait for the ray tracing update for the next-gen console so I can make a huge dick, and then it will have a ray tracing huge dick glorious shadow. Okay. Number 1 was boobies. Because of course it was.
Fair.
Dustin sent in his top 10. Number 10, Streets of Rage. Number 9, Cyberpunk. Number 8, Goose... I can't read. I was going to call it Goose of Tsushima.
That's Untitled Goose Game's weird tie-in
Yeah.
DLC with Ghost of Tsushima.
Number 7, Astro's Playroom. Number 6, Spider-Man. Number 5, Neo 2. Number 4, Ori. Number 3, Demon Souls. Number 2, Final Fantasy VII Remake. Number 1, Last of Us. Biggest disappointment was Resident Evil 3. Most overhyped game, Ghost of Tsushima.
Oh, that hurts my heart.
I don't know about that. Yeah.
Biggest game I didn't play, 13 Sentinels. Most anticipated, Final Fantasy 16 and Elden Ring. P.S. Little Hope is better than Man of Medan. Oh, you know.
Wow.
No.
I don't know, so I can just laugh. I hated that.
I know you guys have some technical issues playing Little Hope, right?
Well, it has nothing to do with the technical issues.
Yeah, it's not the technical issues that made that game not so great.
I didn't hate Little Hope.
I didn't hate it, but saying it's better than Man of Medan, I mean...
I think I didn't like Man of Medan because I was just kind of like hoping for Until Dawn, and obviously it wasn't Until Dawn, you know?
We'll never get Until Dawn again.
Probably not.
No. Budget-wise, you won't.
Yeah, it's a shame because damn, that's a great game. But I think I knew what I was getting into when I was playing Little Hope. So I was like, my expectations were tempered, and I got more or less what I was expecting. And obviously, the ending is divisive, but I still enjoy what I played.
Drew, Andy says on Twitter, listening to the podcast and as a rural Georgian can confirm what Drew is saying about COVID and the population 100%. And the well-being of the country rides on this state's votes, which turned out pretty good. So
yeah, good job, Georgia.
Yep.
Way to go, Drew. You saved us.
Yep.
I didn't do anything.
Well, you voted. That's not nothing.
That's true.
So, Curtis says, I did not play a lot of AAA games last year. I mostly played indie stuff. These are my picks. Pinstripe, Hades, and Ori 2 are my games of the year. Note, Pinstripe wasn't released in 2020, but I played it in 2020, and it was that good. I love the atmosphere and the story. And do you guys have any hidden gems of 2020?
I think we all have
I would say the Pathless is a hidden gem.
I've been trying to play that. I don't know how I feel about it yet.
Yeah, I enjoy the game, but like I said, it's got its flaws.
Yeah. I've made it to I got the bird, and I'm like right after I got the bird. So I'm
okay. Yeah, I mean the you haven't made it to the best parts of that game yet, which are the boss fights. The game's boss fights are really good.
Yep. I'm gonna keep plowing away at it, but I haven't played a ton of it.
Just remembering, Jay's number 1, 13 Sentinels.
Mm-hmm.
He would probably say that's a hidden gem. One of my number 1s, seeing as I have 2 because I'm a cheater, Cardo. I talked that up. My 3rd is Murder by Numbers, which is also kind of not talked about. Drew, do you have any?
9 Monkeys of Shaolin.
There you go.
Pick up Pumpkin Jack right now.
Pumpkin Jack, yeah. Pumpkin Jack's another one. They had a Christmas update, so there's some extras in there.
Pumpkin Jack is so good.
If you like card games like Hearthstone, I started getting into Legend of Runeterra this year. And that game is surprisingly fair for a free-to-play game as far as getting your collection. It's very generous with giving you cards and stuff like that and packs to open as you do your like weekly challenges and all this stuff. And the presentation, despite me no longer playing League of Legends, I think I last played my game of League of Legends maybe like 6, 7 years ago. Despite that, I still like the presentation, the champions, and everything. So if you're in the mood for a card game, Legends of Runeterra, definitely check it out.
Curtis also says a lot of gamers don't give Microsoft and Xbox enough credit for what they have done for gaming. They helped push gaming to where it's at now in a lot of ways, starting with the OG Xbox to current gen. I'm glad they decided to enter the video game industry when they did.
Definitely. It's been very helpful to have that competition because as we know, Nintendo's kind of off doing their own thing,
Yep.
being very successful, and bless their hearts, just do what you do best and keep doing it. Though you don't have to compete with Sony and Microsoft. If Sony was the only hat in the ring, I think we would see a very different landscape without the competition needed in order to kind of propel not only the technology but also the consumer-friendly nature of a lot of these backwards compatibility things. That keeps going back from Microsoft and PlayStation, so it's been very healthy to have that competition. I hope they stay in the competition locked basically till the end of time, if possible.
Yep.
Well, I mean, you saw what happens when Nintendo tries to compete. It was the GameCube.
Yeah, that didn't work out too
And
well.
like it was a stronger console than the PS2, but the PS2 had a DVD player, and the Xbox had a DVD player and was a stronger console, but it was the Xbox. It entered the ring last. So, it's Nintendo when they're competing. It's like, yeah, they had some really great GameCube games, but for the most part, like they exploded on the Wii. The DS took off like crazy, and they were, outside of what the other console manufacturers were doing. So you're right there. It's just like we did actually get to see that at one point in time, and it didn't really work out for them. It's their worst selling mainline console, I believe.
Probably. It's my least memorable for sure.
More than the Wii U, really?
I don't even count that. That don't count.
Yeah, I forgot about the
I
Wii U.
Wii U.
You're right. Wii
I
U
enjoy
definitely
my
did the
Wii
worst.
U.
Hey,
I have a ton of games for my Wii
Oh,
U.
the Wii U is great, but I'm just saying it's their worst selling. I wasn't saying that they're.
Yeah, Wii U. I modded the crap out of my Wii U to play a lot of stuff. It's pretty great.
Adam says I have to be boring and say The Last of Us 2, but a massive honorable mention to RuneScape. This year it's 20 years old, but back in March they released the new skill Archaeology, which really mixes up the formula of what a skill is. Never seen the game so busy in years. Cheers.
That's awesome, man. Like, game 20 years, it's still going strong. Very cool.
Yeah.
Also, The Last of Us 2 is not a boring answer. As much as I shit on that game, I'm not going to say it's a boring answer. Like,
I think that perception comes from the fact that it won Game of the Year at the Game Awards show. So, yeah, but I mirror the sentiment too. No one's Game of the Year is boring. It just kind of comes down to what you happen to enjoy that year the most, So
and like
don't worry about
there's
that.
and if a lot of people are talking about it, it's usually for a good reason, unless it's all
Usually.
negative, in which case it's not. But I mean, like honestly, like I think back about like games that have big discussions, and they still generally hold up. Like it's shit. Like my game of the year for 2017 was Nier Automata. A lot of people talk about Nier Automata. I don't feel bad about that.
Real Shogun Beat says, I don't think this counts, but Game Pass has definitely been my game of the year, in quotes. I played so many gems on it last year. My favorites were Gears Tactics, Call of the Sea, Deliver Us the Moon, non-Game Pass, Twin Mirror this year was a great AA. Most AAA sucked in 2020.
I disagree on the last point, but Game Pass
I agree.
truly is
Yeah.
the biggest and the best deal in gaming right now. Whether you're playing it on PC or you have it on Xbox, I highly recommend it. I'm so glad I locked in the $5 price point for a couple of years. But even after that runs out, I can easily see myself re-upping for a couple more years if they keep up the quality of these games. I will say the only thing bad about the PC Game Pass is the PC Game Pass DRM. does all manner of stupid shit. I know, Ken, you know this, but every time you try to play a game on Game Pass, you have to allow it and share your personal information with the fucking game before you're allowed to log in and play the game.
Yeah,
You need to do it for every single game. It's so stupid.
it's one of those really bad design decisions that if
Yeah.
they would just get it to work like the console, it would be fine.
Exactly. And also you can't mod any of these games. You can't do any kind of thing to a lot of games on Game Pass initially were broken, and the fixes for them involve messing around with the exe files, but you can't do that with the Game Pass games, which makes it so that they remain broken. So if you check PC Game Pass, most of the games are like hovering around 2 to 3 stars because there's so many technical issues that people can't fix because they don't let you fix them. So if they iron out that part, I think PC Game Pass can be something truly awesome. But even with that, it's still an incredible value.
Yeah, it's crazy to see some of the stuff that we've seen hit that service, and I hear that in this year it's going to be even bigger. So the EA thing still hasn't happened on PC yet, has it?
It hasn't. They delayed it.
Yeah, I knew they delayed it, but I didn't know if it had popped up yet. So that'll be
Not
huge
yet.
because it was huge for Xbox when it dropped. Because like you could immediately play one of last year's best games, Jedi Fallen Order. So
Yeah, that would certainly be nice. But so, do you still need an Origin account to play those games on top of the Game Pass account, or how does that work?
nope. On Xbox, at least, you just log in and play it.
Okay, I hope that'll be the same. I don't want to log in and create another account for some different garbage.
Yeah, I
again.
don't think I even have it. I probably have an Origin account because I've tied my games to the accounts or whatever, but I don't know the login. I don't give a fuck. So.
Yeah, to give a perspective on the Origin account, I think I made one for Titanfall 1, and then that was the only game I ever played on it. So yeah.
But that's it. Oh, you have something? Go ahead.
Yeah, it was interesting to hear Twin Mirror come up. That was the Don't Nod game that wasn't Tell Me Why.
Oh, yeah.
Did you play Tell Me Why?
I played the first episode.
I need to.
I played the first episode. It's one of those. I mean,
I loved Life is Strange. So I've been meaning to get back into playing those types of games, but I still have Life is Strange 2 to play. So
Yeah, I'm on the same boat. I really liked Life is Strange. Drew, you played Life is Strange too, right?
I think he died.
Drew.
Yes, I did.
did you
Okay.
mute yourself, Drew?
I accidentally muted myself.
Good job.
Nice, good job.
I heard the click and then nothing.
Yeah, I think for those games you kind of have to be in a specific kind of mood in order to play them because they are very much like watching a movie a lot of the time. So you have to be in that passive mood. But I do want to play Tell Me Why and the last bit of Life is Strange as well.
I think it's also partially the hook, and like I don't really know what the hook is with Tell Me Why or Twin Mirror, so it's hard for me to go. I need to play this, but I also don't really know what the hook is in Life is Strange 2 either. So I think that's the issue, is that I don't have enough information to be like, do I really want to invest my time into this? But I'm glad to hear that somebody's enjoying their stuff. Like
Somebody
like
did
that
play
studio.
Twin Mirror, even though I totally forgot it came out.
Well, it's just they every time they do an action game, it doesn't really go great. So
Is it an action game? I thought it was another.
no,
like...
no. I'm just saying, like, because they seem to do an action game and then their Life is Strange sort of stuff. So they had Vampire and that didn't
That was Don't Nod?
take a. That was Don't Nod.
Holy shit, I did not know that.
Yeah.
Yes, it was.
That game was not that good.
They did Vampire, and then they did Life is Strange 2, and then they have Tell Me Why, which came out, and then Twin Mirror, which they self-published. Apparently,
Man, those guys are just cranking games out. I swear.
Yeah.
True.
That is it for the show for Game of the Year. 2020 was a challenging but very good year. Looking forward to 2021, where we will finally get some true next-gen games. We really haven't got a ton yet. So I'm looking forward to those titles, and we've got some stuff early on in the year that hopefully we won't forget at the end of 2021. But that's about it. Be back next week. We'll be back on a normal show schedule. Drew, your Phoenix Downs doing Ocarina of Time. First episode is up.
Yep.
So you can go listen to that, and you should play the music while you're listening to it. Oh, by the way, funny thing, Drew, we still got blocked in some countries for the Supernatural episode.
Because I use Supernatural music?
Yep. So I got a warning on that show that the video was unavailable in certain regions.
Which regions?
I don't know. It didn't. Probably if I clicked into it, it would show, but it works in the U.S.
Supernatural ones.
Oh.
Transylvania.
You are blocked in China? All right. Oh.
So I thought that was funny. That's the first warning I've seen on a video we've done. So
that's really weird.
Yeah. But anyway, that is 2020 in a nutshell. 2021 is here. Hopefully this year is better than the last. For games and the world. But unless anybody has anything else before we get out of here, that's going to wrap up 2021 or 2020 in games, y'all.
This episode wasn't as long as it could be.
That's because John wasn't here. We love you, John.
Love you, miss you, buddy.
All right. Peace out, bitches.
Alrighty. And it goes something like this.
Epic fail. Welcome to the N4G podcast.
It's me, Mario.
$0.
This is going to be a very interesting episode.
Gather time.
Greetings, programs. I got lost trying to find my way to the secret underground N4G radio lair.
The Wombat. And
always so being angry.
Killer Wolverine. Play games, not consoles. No fanboys allowed.
And then I killed the dragon. 8.0.
Killed the dragon.